Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hey, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky. And we are mid-December, man. We are just like a week away from Christmas. It's exciting. Think about Christmas and G.I. Joe and what all that meant to you when you were a kid. I mean, Christmas is always a magical time of the year. So I'm excited for that, guys. Remember, this is the podcast hosted by me, your host, Joe Slepsky, where we go over, every cartoon, every issue of the comic book, page by page, panel by panel, and we break it down because this week we're doing a Joe on Joe Illustrated, and we are doing G.I. Joe number 62. So remember last week we did Special Missions, which was the Outback portion of the story where the guys got caught in Barovia, and now we're going back to Barovia, and we're going to find out what happened to Stalker, Snowjob, and Quick Kick. Now, before we get started, everyone, I want to thank you for being a listener. Thank you for supporting me on my Patreon, patreon.com/JoeandJoePod. Follow me on social media, Joe and Joe Pod at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Send me an email to joeandjoepod@gmail.com if you want to be a guest on the show. We do have some animated stuff that we're going to start back up again. And with those, I do with a partner, with a guest. And I love having my fans and listeners on as guests. So come on down, guys, and let me know that you're out there. I appreciate every one of you. I hope everyone's being healthy and happy and safe, and that you got all your Christmas presents ordered early, because they're certainly not coming by the mail on time. And before we go any further, a little word from our sponsor. Listeners, I know what you need in your life. You need more podcasts. And you also love movies. So why not do a podcast that's about not one movie? It's about not two movies. It's about 3 movies and a meal. I'm talking the Movies and a Meal podcast. This show is great. It's brought to you by Keith, Brad, and Ben, and each week they bring a new movie to the table, which they all discuss as a group. And it's not, your highfalutin movies. It's What We Do in the Shadows, The Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Out of Sight. It's Bad Education, Ghost Rider, and A View to a Kill. It's X-Men Last Stand, Queen Sugar, The Mandalorian, and Major League 2. They are a lot of fun to listen to. You guys know Ben. It's our friend Ben Pensarga. He was a guest on Joe and Joe. In fact, Ben was the very first remote guest that I ever had on this podcast, so he's always got a special place in my heart. I'm really digging this. I just started listening to it last week. It is a lot of fun. They bring a guest in. The guest, I listened to their Heathers episode. They were joined by Kelly, and she went in depth on her favorite movie, which was Heathers, and it made me want to go watch Heathers to watch with them. I really dig it. So guys, find them out there at Movies and a Meal, Twitter, Instagram. Their website is moviesandameal.podbean.com. They put out 1 episode a week. Give them a listen, guys. Support them. Let them know Joe on Joe sent you. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It is quite entertaining. And now back to the show. Now, G.I. Joe number 62. It took place in August of 1987. Well, it didn't take place then, I guess. It was published right around then. And we know we've been over this. It technically probably came out in May, but, whatever. We're going with it. So before we get going, now normally we like to start off by looking at other comic books that were on the racks the month that the issue in hand came out. But we did that last week with the Special Missions issue. So instead, I'm going to take this time to talk about 2 new cast members to the G.I. Joe creative team. We've got two new pencilers coming on, and one of them is a bit of a mystery. So we're going to knock him out first. Half of this book is penciled very ably, I might say, by a guy by the name of William Johnson. I do not know William Johnson. I'm not familiar with his work. I do have some issues that he's worked on. It looks, from what I could find, he's worked on issues like 7 and 8 of Transformers, some Daredevil, certainly have those, some Master Kung Fu, probably, it looks like some ROM Space Knight. But I think one of the issues is his name, William Johnson, is pretty generic. It's kind of a harder Google. So I spent a little time digging into some rabbit holes, and I can't really find much about him. The only thing I could find credited for him is over on the Transformers Wiki, where there was an interview with Bob Budiansky, who he described Johnson as, quote, a very nice guy with a lot of talent who apparently struggled to meet the deadlines of a monthly comic book. So maybe that's why we didn't see more of him. Because I will say, as we go into this book, he's a very talented guy. I like his style. I think it's perfect fit for G.I. Joe, like an absolute perfect fit for G.I. Joe. So William Johnson, if you hear this, or if anyone listeners, if you guys know how to get in touch with William Johnson, let him know we appreciate him. And we're going to talk about his work today. But beyond that, I don't know much about him. Secondly, though, the other half of this book is penciled by Arvell Jones. And Arvell Jones, I am a fan of. Because Arvell Jones penciled a ton of stuff that I love. He penciled All-Star Squadron. He penciled some Legion of Superhero stuff. He did some Superman Family stuff, Super Team Family. He worked a bunch in the Milestone books like Blood Syndicate, Hardware, Cobalt. Over at Marvel, he did a little bit here and there in like Avengers, Cap Annual. He did this issue of G.I. Joe. It looks like this is the only issue of G.I. Joe that he did. He did a Marvel 2-in-1. It looks like he bounced around a little bit. Some Thor, What If, Power Man, Supervillain Team Up. He was like a pinch hitter. I think his biggest run that I know him from is from his work on All-Star Squadron and Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. He did a couple issues of those, as well as the DC Special 28, and that's where he would have caught my eye. And it looks like he went on to work a little bit in the animation industry, and he hasn't really done a comic since like 95 per se. But he was a pioneer. He was from, and he's still with us, so I don't mean was, but he was from Detroit, Michigan. He grew up around fellow professionals like Rich Buckler, Keith Pollard, Jim Starlin, Al Milgram. So, and those were big names in the 70s and early 80s, if you guys know that. So I could definitely see that that influence. Those guys really solid storytellers. I don't think there's not a lot of like even with Jim Starlin, I would say he's probably the flashiest of them all. But they're all very workmanlike artists and very good storytellers, I would say, to the man. And that's what you get out of this issue from Arvell Jones. I'm trying to think if I've ever met him. I don't know that I have, but I appreciate his work, and it was nice to see his name on there. So Arvell Jones, if you're out there listening, we appreciate you. And I look forward to discussing your book this week in G.I. Joe number 62. So here we go.
Soon the whole world will bow to Destro and Cobra.
Starts with an amazing Mike Zeck cover. This is a classic cover. This is probably top maybe 15, maybe it cracks the top 10. But this cover is great, and I don't think it's great necessarily because of the layout, although it's a great layout, totally works for me. But I think because of the image that it's on there, where you've got 3 G.I. Joe guys held prisoner, you got Stalker in handcuffs evoking slavery images. They're being held at gunpoint, and they're being taken off of a train into barbed wire. Now we know it's a concentration camp or a prisoner camp, but it's a barbed wire fence evoking the whole image. The entire image is evoking concentration camps and World War II and all that stuff. The guards are in obvious like Eastern European, Russian-esque clothing. Might as well be, German. So this comic book cover, I would say, is real controversial, especially for a kid's book. Without being controversial, like the only thing missing here is like a swastika on a shoulder pad, right? But it's great. It's got, I love the looks on all their faces. Stalker just looks pissed. Quick Kick and Gung Ho, let's look closer. Yeah. I'm sorry, not Gung Ho. Snow Job looks great. If you look really close, it's a real small detail, but he's like looking with just anger underneath his bowed head. And then Quick Kick is completely hurt, so he's got his head fully down. And Stalker is standing. Stalker couldn't be standing more stiff-backed and upright. They've also got the shirt torn, right? Shirt's not necessarily torn in the comic book either. So it's a little bit like showing the damage they've been through. It definitely is evoking that Luke Cage breaking chain, ripping shirt aesthetic look for Stalker here. For real, I dig it, man. The colors are good. They're fairly, it's like red skies, and what is it? Red skies at night, sailors be warned or delight or something like that. But red skies usually aren't a symbol of good things in comic books. Remember in Crisis, red skies meant doom. And then the rest of the color is pretty naturally colored, but I like it. Like, this is quietly just a subversive comic and really says a lot without saying much. So there, kudos, Mike Zack, and who's the inker on this? Oh yeah, Bob McLeod. Kudos to you guys for this. Really, really good job.
Yo, Joe!
Transit, written by Larry Hama, pencils by William Johnson and Arvell Jones, Andy Mushinski on inks, Bob Sharon on colors, Joe Rosen letters, Bob Harris editor, and Jim Shooter editing in chief. So let's see here. So the first page is Arvell, and then we go to 2 through 6 of William Johnson. Then it's back to Arvell for just one page. And then it's William Johnson for pages 8 through 12. And then it's Arvell finishes the book with 13 through 22. So we'll try to keep track of who's who and all that stuff. I will say this. I two things on this opening splash page. It's the guys. They're all in. They're in front of this just political tribunal. You know, like it looks like some kind of courthouse, or they're being held, remanded over for trial. They're being referred to as defendants, so this is some kind of courtroom. I like the Dutch tilt they put on the camera that kind of puts everything off center. It's like a Batman Dutch tilt. It really puts you off kilter that these guys are out of control and they're not in any depth. They're out of their depth. Stalker's out of his uniform. He was in the black, and then underneath, like the black not camo, but the all black infiltration suit. And then we saw that got torn away, so his normal camo was underneath it. But now his camo is actually gone, and he's just in a regular drab green outfit, which is weird. Snow Job looks normal, except they took all his like gun belt stuff off him, which makes sense. And then Quick Kick looks normal, except they haven't given him a shirt. And of course they took his sash that has those Chinese stars. They can't even give him a shirt or shoes. Regardless of what happened when he whatever clothing got ripped when they were infiltrating, he did have shoes on, guys. So like Quick Kick can never get a break with the shoes and the shirt. Like I always, in the cartoon, I felt bad for him. He's my guy and he can never get a break. But this is good. I will say that the drawings of this, both the soldiers and like the politicians here, they don't look Eastern German to me. Specifically that, what was it? Commander Pachachki or something from the, Pachachki, that's not his name. I couldn't remember his name when we were doing the issue. I'm not going to remember it now. The guy with the big thick glasses. They had this real Eastern European look to them. These guys look like Southeast Asian. They look like they're Vietnamese soldiers. So that's a weird shift to me. I'm assuming it's for reference. And I'm also going to leap and make the assumption here that because there's two pencilers, that tells me that there was not a lot of time to do this. And it also, remember, this is the book that's hot on the heels of the Todd McFarlane extra issue, which Marshall Rogers did the re-up. So that had to be rushed. So I'm assuming this book was running late. And that's why we have both two artists and a little bit of visual discontinuity. So, retrospect, I'm willing to forgive it. Doesn't change the story at all. The story's really good. So the guys get sentenced to 5 consecutive life terms at quote socially corrective hard labor.
Yo, Joe!
So now we're on to William Johnson's pencils, and I gotta say I like them a lot. They're really good. They've got a little bit of Mark Bright to them, and sometimes with comic books back then, and I guess occasionally you'll still see it now. But back then, there was a lot of times that they used pseudonyms. I am not saying William Johnson is a pseudonym at all. Not making that assertion. But there's a couple images in here that just, that look a little bit like other artists. So, like I see a little bit of Tom Lyle here. I see a little bit of Mark Bright. I wonder if this was a collaborative effort, and they just used the name William Johnson. I am not at all asserting that. In fact, I hope someone out there knows William Johnson. Bust me out on Twitter. Please, 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 please. It doesn't matter. I really enjoy this work a lot. He does some really great crowd work. As the guys are being escorted out of the jail, there's a bunch of picketers, but all the signs that they're carrying are like like factory made signs so that they're obvious plants picketing quote unquote the Americans, but the guys never really said where they are from, so they assume they're Americans, but they're not really able to say, oh yeah, they're American, so blame the US for it. So they just have these 3 spies that are getting drug off and sent to the camps, but it's all over the news is the point.
Yo, Joe!
And that news broadcast carries over to the pit, where we see who is it? We got Spirit, Beachhead, Roadblock, Mutt and Junk, Leatherneck, and Rakondo. They're all watching the TV and watching this news broadcast, and they're very upset. Now, I just called it the pit. We don't know exactly where they're at. It does not say the pit. As a tomahawk lands in at the bottom of this page, you see that there's a bunch of Quonset huts and looks like some construction going on, but we don't really exactly know where it is, which is important because there's a bit of a tease in this issue. It's lift ticket in the tomahawk. As that lands, the TV reception goes crazy, and Leatherneck's pissed, and he looks at it, and so they rush out to see who's showing up in lift ticket, because they said he wasn't scheduled for a run for a couple days. But this is nice. It's a nice page layout. The carryover from the previous page of the last thing you see is the guy on the camera, and then the first thing you see on this page to take you to any setting is a great transition, because you go from on the previous page, guy with the camera, now you go to a guy, what the camera's shooting inside a TV that can take you continuously to anywhere in the world. And then you pull back from that and you show who's watching that TV. It's a classic like animation technique, TV, storytelling technique. It's really well done here. And the camera basically continues to pull back to show more of where they're at. So it starts tight on the TV, shows the group of dudes, plays around a little bit with them. Then it shows, they're in these Quonset huts. And then it goes even a little bit, comes back, I guess tightens up a little bit, but then it shows that there's a lift ticket showing up at the tomahawk. So some good placement here. And I always like that in my G.I. Joe comics.
Yo, Joe!
Nice facial work on all of these guys. They all look pretty distinctive. They are very upset to see that it is Outback. And he's getting off the tomahawk, and he's heading towards, he just wants to go to his bunk. So Junkyard is very upset about seeing Outback. I understand conceptually why the other guys are a little upset with him. I don't agree with it, but I get the emotion there. I don't understand why the dog would be that furious. I can't imagine Junkyard understands what's happening here. But he walks right past him. They give him the cold shoulder. What do you say? Don't you owe us an explanation? Yeah, how come you're over here and the other 3 ain't? And Outback just says, I don't know what you're talking about. What's delightful about this is the whoop whoop whooping of the copter as it flies away into the sky. Throughout this page, he's drawn, and this is to confirm, this is William Jones, because he did page William Johnson, sorry, he did pages 2 through 6. So throughout this entire page, they're all grabbing at their hats. So you see in the top, Rakondo's holding his hat, Leatherneck's holding his hat, Leatherneck's holding his hat again in the third panel. And then they're all holding it again, and you see the lift tickets taking off in the plane. You get the whoop, whoop, whoop. It adds this level of noise to the scene, not even just like sound noise, but just sand getting kicked up, tension. Think about how loud and abusive a helicopter rotor can be. And that carries through this entire page, even if you're not consciously aware of it, just by the posture that in the acting that he's doing with all these characters. So it's really nice.
Yo, Joe!
So now we're inside. Everyone's no longer holding onto their hats. And Outback, who has lost the survival word, that's no longer being drawn, which is unfortunate. He just finds a bed, and just lays down to take a nap. And Leatherneck is giving him the business. I like this because I like showing different opinions amongst the G.I. Joe guys. I like showing a little infighting and a little disagreement, because they're not infighting about having different goals. They're infighting about you don't I love my guys more than you. It's essentially what they're fighting about. And if there's any character from the cartoon, at least, that we know fits that bill, it's Leatherneck. Like Leatherneck was to not to borrow a name, but he was all gung-ho about it, So it's really cool that they used him here for that. I like that a lot. But as he's getting in Outback's face, Outback freaking pulls a knife on him, which is crazy. And all this is interrupted by the ringing of the phone. 2 pages in a row with really nice storytelling, punctuated by sound effects and punctuated by the environment, which is it's an element of comic books that is often overlooked because comic books is a silent medium. So very often, outside of the explosions and the big old, whatever, sound effects can be used to great effect. And so when they are used, I really appreciate them. And this time it's a phone is ringing off the hook. So it kind of grabs everyone's attention.
Yo, Joe!
And it is Grunt calling from Georgia Tech. And he saw in the news what happened. He recognized the guys from the news. And you see that he's got a, like a graduation picture kind of thing of Snake Eyes and Clutch and him and Stalker. And he's calling to see like when's the rescue operation because he wants to be a part of it. Now, if you remember, Grunt left like 8 issues ago, or like 7 issues ago. And as he's talking to Roadblock, the knife fight is proceeding. That's what's awesome about this middle scene is that the phone punctuated the tension for us, but Outback still has this knife drawn on Leatherneck, and that's amazing. And we get Roadblock saying, like, I got to clear this line. Things are getting heavy over here. We don't get the resolution of this, which is fantastic. That's awesome because we don't have to see anyone back down on either direction because those guys aren't necessarily wrong in wanting to rescue and protect their buddies. On the other hand, I think it could easily be argued that Outbacks did what he had to do, So we don't kind of need to see that in this moment, which is really cool. It's tension that's left in the air. And we see that Grunt slams the phone down and he looks and he sees this picture of Stalker. So we know that he's not going to give up on his buddy Stalker. Now this transition is amazing to go from the end of this page, which is a close-up on Stalker smiling from this photo, to
Yo, Joe!
Stalker being beat up and abused as a prisoner. Now, the reason I say it's amazing is because those are 2 different artists. Now we've got Arvell Jones on. And yeah, you might take it for granted that there was coordination on the editor's part to say, hey, this, or in the script even, I'm sure it was in their script where it ends on a photo close-up of Stalker and then it opens on a close-up of Stalker being beaten up. But that they even have the angle of the head the same. Kudos to everyone involved in this transition especially when there's 2 artists involved. Because that meant editorial was doing their job, Larry was doing his job. Certainly the artists were doing their job. And welcome back, Arvell Jones. We appreciate you. Stalker's really jacked up. They're on a train on their way to the Gulag. And Snowjob appears to have like gotten it kind of the worst. So while they're on this train, these other prisoners are, they're going to come for the Joe's clothing. They're like going to steal their shoes and steal their coats and all that stuff. Like it's that old prison thing of like, give me your shoes, boy, like that kind of a thing. So as they went towards the quote sick and possibly dying, Stalker kicked the guy in the face and knocked him out. So when this guy Leonid, so when Leonid got knocked out, the other prisoners jumped on Leonid and now are about to steal his clothing. So it's dog eat dog. Some nice small panel work, variations on the small panels. Keeps us confined. If you look at these, it's definitely got a confining sense to the layout and the design without doing a lot of detail work on the backgrounds, because there's probably not a lot of light inside this train car. And then right in the middle of the page, the camera zooms up to show us this train traveling on these train tracks, somewhere, in the middle of Barovia. But it's that having that in the middle of the page is a nice little effect to keep us, the rest of it all just kind of claustrophobic and trapped inside. It's really cool.
Yo, Joe!
All right, so now we've got William Johnson again for the next 5 pages, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And it's catching us up on the goings on in Denver. So if you remember last time we left Denver, Billy had left his dad to go join Jinx and the Blind Master in training. And his dad, Cobra Commander, had gotten shot and presumably killed by a raptor. And Fred, what was he, Fred 7? So we're checking in on Billy and Jinx. They're doing some martial arts training, and she's kind of filling him in. She hasn't come clean yet on exactly who she is and how she's related to the Arashikage family, So they're talking as they're fighting, and it's good, it's good martial art work. I appreciate it. There's nice, clean, like speed lines where you see the flow of the swords, and he's fighting with a bow staff, and she's fighting with looks like a couple of katanas. Good. It's nice. They're fighting over a framed photo of the Hard Master, who we find out later would have been her uncle. I think it's technically her uncle.
Yo, Joe!
Billy actually disarms Jinx, and when he does, he reveals her Urishikage tattoo, and is like, "What's up? Like, you got the same tattoo as my master's. Why is everyone jerking me around?" And as he does that, a Chinese throwing star, like gets flung across, a shuriken gets flung across the room into the bow staff, and we see that it was thrown by a blind dude, which is always fantastic. And it's the Blind Master. He says, "It was not her place to tell you, Billy, nor is it my place to tell you all. I can show you this much, though. The answer's behind this portrait of the Hard Master." Okay, so I mean, it's good though, and I respect all this stuff, and some good. I especially like that picture of Billy up top. That's a really cool like low angle on it. Like, this is good. Like, this guy's a good artist, and it's, if that Budiansky quote was correct, that he just couldn't keep up with a monthly grind. That's too bad, because I like his work here. It's very clean, very animation centric.
Yo, Joe!
This is a fabulous gag. Behind the portrait of the Hard Master is another picture that was taken, some 20 years earlier or whatever, 15 years earlier. And when the Blind Master pulls it down, he's holding it upside down. So it takes Jinx to right side it up. And this is the first time we get a clue as to the deeper mystery behind who killed the Hard Master. It says the blurred fellow on the end is Onihashi's assistant and an adept ninjutsu practitioner. His style was that of the now extinct Koga clan. Some people say that the Kogas are just hiding. For some strange reason, his face is blurred in every known photograph. And then Jinx says that's her in the middle when she was 8. So this is probably 20 years ago at the most, or at the most probably 15, maybe more likely. And you get to see Snake Eyes. He looks a little bit like Peter Parker in this, but it's from a distance, not really that revealing. And so Jinx says, it's all one big family. Storm Shadow is Jinx's cousin on Storm Shadow's mother's side. And Blind Master says, go with Jinx to San Francisco to the Presidio, where you're going to learn more. So they're going from Denver to San Francisco. That's the journey they're going to go on. But this page is really important because it introduces this mystery of who Onihashi's assistant is, and why is his face so blurry.
Yo, Joe!
Now here's Fred's garage. They're pulling back in their car. This is after they finish disposing of Cobra Commander's body. And they're like, they're free and clear. And the only one else that knew Cobra Commander was even here was Billy. Now, Raptor does not have his bird uniform on, and he also doesn't have a shirt on. So even though his car says he breaks for Baby Hawks on board, he does not have a shirt on board. Makes it even more awkward for all of us, Raptor. That's all I'm saying. But there's mud. There's mud on a shovel, so we know, like, they've been burying a body. That's pretty good. Raptor talks about liability. You're the one who pulled the trigger, etc., etc. He says he should have stuck to something safe like embezzlement or investment counseling or embezzlement. And he sees the warehouse door open.
Yo, Joe!
And then this is the final page by William Johnson. And Billy and Jinx pull out in a Ford GT40 Mark IV. And inside there's a couple cassette tapes, Beastie Boys and Kill Me and the Thugs. Apparently Kill Me and the Thugs were actual New York bands at the time. Larry Hama's a musician himself. He was playing in bands, so those would have been stuff that he was listening to. We all know Beastie Boys. It's just those are the blind masters. She only listens to Bach and Coltrane, but he also drives this car, but only at night. That's always funny. As they peel away, Raptor realizes that's Billy. I need to follow him. So he, pulls off in the car without Fred. I do think it's funny that like Billy made the big stink of like, I'm leaving. And then he just went next door, for a couple days. That's kind of funny to me.
Yo, Joe!
Now back in Barovia and back to Arvell Jones. We've got the camp train pulling up to the station. It looks very Schindler's Listy, as they pull up to the door. The guard tells them to, stand back. He gives them like one loaf of bread and one bucket of water that they have to share. And he closes the door behind them. So they're definitely not being treated well. One wonders how long these guys have been on the train. So Stalker and and real quick, another subtle detail. It's really, really cold. And they can say that, but then they also they're starting to draw icicles on things. So you just know it's freezing. All the guys they got their arms around their hand, they're freezing, they're holding their body and shaking cold. So how long have these guys been on this train? Because it's one thing to go to somewhere and then be starved, but like these guys probably have been on this train for a long time.
Yo, Joe!
And so they go to the food like mad animals, and Stalker actually jumps in and punches these dudes. And it's like, we're men, like, don't be animals. Like, they're going to, if it's only unfair if we let it be that way. So, so everyone's going to get an equal share of the bread and the water, including the wounded. Like, and that Stalker's going to enforce this. And I suppose he can get away with it because he's relatively healthy, and these dudes apparently are dying of starvation from being on a train for a day.
Yo, Joe!
I don't mean to minimize that. This whole thing is obviously an allegory to what happened in World War II, and it was not good times. So Stalker basically doles out the bread, make sure everyone gets some, including that Leonid dude that everyone kind of jumped on and beat the hell out of earlier. He says, "You owe me nothing," and Stalker says, "You know who gives quarters to the bums on the street? Poor people do, because they're close enough to the edge to see the drop." So he gives this guy his jacket that he was wearing. And the other dudes, they fell off the edge a long time ago, so there's kind of no helping them. But, he's going to keep his self-respect, which is great. Like, this is a great Stalker issue. It's really, really good. It makes me wonder how, seeing Leonid, like, freezing and, even though he's been beaten after that, how is Quick Kick doing this without a shirt the whole time? Quick Kick's never had a shirt on. He's got to be miserable.
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, back in Denver. Now, this says it's still Arvell Jones. This page feels like a William Johnson page, but it's according to the credits, it's Arvell Jones still. But it looks, I mean, it's continuity wise, it kind of feels like William Johnson stuff, but basically, Jinx and Billy are being trailed by, Raptor, and they see him. So they go on a high speed chase to elude him, and it's pretty funny.
Yo, Joe!
Billy even gives him a little thumbs up as they leave him in the dust. There's not much going on this page. Some nice variation of panels all across the board. Nice usage of the binocular panel in the middle. Even with, you don't need to do this in this, but they give you the non-binocular look at how far the car away is, and then within the binoculars you get to see what he's seeing, which is those guys in the driver's seat and riding shotgun, which is a nice little detail. And then we see that Raptor sends his birds off to follow them. From the sky!
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, in Utah, and I think that's the first time they said that they're actually in Utah. I don't believe they said they were in Utah earlier. They're still arguing with Leatherneck about it. And it's Roadblock telling Leatherneck to, like, chill out. The guy said what happened. And Leatherneck just doesn't buy it, And he's using the argument, I think Larry's got Leatherneck working as the disgruntled reader here. This is the trick that I think he's doing. And it's smart, and it works. Because he's using an example from, 7 issues earlier, that back when Sierra Gordo, Stalker, was wounded, and he ordered Snake Eyes to leave him behind so as not to slow everyone down. And Roadblock points out that it's not the same thing. The Stalker was badly wounded. Snake Eyes had the right to relieve him. In this case, Stalker was still in command, and he gave Outback an order to do it. Leatherneck says all we have is Outback's word for that. but we, the reader, knows that that's absolutely true. So what Larry's doing here is he's heading off any complaints from readers to say, hey, how is this any different than what happened last time? And that's how it's different. And we get a nice little tease here that we find out. It's a tease of really what's going on in Utah, that it's Gung Ho and I don't know exactly who the other two dudes are, but it might be Mainframe based on that triangular patch. Makes me think that might be Mainframe. And maybe Cutter. But they come up from a hole in the floor and they're like, keep it down up here. We can hear you all the way down on level 3. So it's a tease. What has multiple levels underground? A new pit. Very excited about that.
Yo, Joe!
Now at the Barovian Gulag, the prisoners pull up and they're getting escorted out. We see Stalker remind the guys to memorize where everything is in the depot. It's information they need when they break out. So this is at night. So there's a lot of shadow work being used here in the art. Some spotlights, which are great because spotlights not only introduces splashes of yellow on some of the figures and some of these panels, but then it also just illuminates and gives color to some other panels where then when the spotlight's not on them, everyone else is in like this pale midnight blue. So it helps break up the page a lot, which is pretty good. And then we go to the front gate here and it says, oh, looks like Quick Kick finally got a coat. That's good. He got a shirt at least. And they're going into a camp where it says in English, work is its own reward. No talking in line, keep moving.
Yo, Joe!
And a bird's eye view of this concentration camp. This is like it's something out of Great Escape. Because we've seen that, it's amazing. Hogan's Heroes, it's that kind of a camp, POW camp, a work camp, and we get a nice layout. It's a very well rendered layout of like something out of Metal Gear Solid, the video game. And that these guys are in a lot of trouble. They're really in a lot of trouble. From the looks of this place, our physical condition isn't going to improve any. And the Leonid guy says it's easy enough to talk about keeping your self-respect on the train. It's not so easy here. This place will break you. Stalker says never. And Leonid says they have all the time in the world, ... which is a great way to end that scene. Also reminiscent of the Twilight Zone episode, All the Time in the World, which is fabulous. But it's a nice setup. Like, we're not getting resolved on this anytime soon. These guys are stuck here. There's going to be more to come.
Yo, Joe!
And in San Francisco, Billy and Jinx. See, I don't think these pages they don't feel like Arvell Jones. They do not feel like the same penciler as the other pages. So, but they're not credited to William Johnson either. So this might have been a real big team effort, guys. Or maybe it was just a different inker or something on these pages. I don't know. There's something going on here. But not complaining about it. It's just a different vibe. But Billy and Jinx pull into San Francisco. We get some nice shots of the city. It looks like the opening of the movie The Room.
Yo, Joe!
And they pull up to a new location for the G.I. Joe. That's going to be, it's going to play heavy into G.I. Joe actually for probably a couple of years of comics. The Presidio. The San Francisco Presidio. It's the Defense Language Center. And apparently this is where Jinx is like stationed sometimes. And Raptor follows them. And so let's just think about this. Raptor tailed them from Denver to San Francisco. 1, without a shirt. 2, he tailed them that far. That's a long drive, guys. That is a really, really long. I mean, it's not quick. That's hilarious that he tailed them all the way there. So, now he's got to drive all the way back and tell Fred. So who knows what's going to happen next issue. I like it. It's very much a setup issue. Not a lot of resolution at all here. It definitely progresses the POW plot in a really cool way. I appreciate the parallels, like the World War II parallels that Larry was drawing on that stuff. That's really key, especially for, comic for kids, because, we weren't, especially at this time, like there were, like things like Schindler's List, which is even not for kids anyway. But now I think a lot more people have seen that or know about it. But at the time, that stuff didn't exist. You had Hogan's Heroes, which kind of made it a laugh. Like I said, Great Escape. I don't think a lot of 80s kids had seen, which is an amazing movie. You should see it. Things like that. So I think this is really cool. And I think Brave and good on Marvel for letting Larry tell this story of GI Joe, action figures getting captured as actual POWs in an Eastern European country and sent to deplorable POW conditions, gulag. This is great. Like, this is really, really heady stuff, and I get why he wouldn't want a more cartoony penciler like McFarlane telling the rest of this story. I get it, man. I'm in 100% agreement with that. So I dig it, guys. A good episode, a solid episode, very solid episode, really solid penciling throughout. Nothing flashy, nothing to write home about. Strong cover. I'm on board. G.I. Joe, number 62. 62? Yeah, right? Yeah, it's number 62. Here we are. Happy days, guys. Hope everyone's well. Hope everyone's safe. We got the vaccine on the way. Keep wearing those masks. And remember, now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.